The new iPhone SE was just released a few days ago and it seems like everyone loves it. Of all the YouTube reviews I've watched and all the articles out there, there's virtually mountains of praise to this so-called new iPhone, and seemingly almost no negative critique. So, let me play the devil's advocate and unload some of my thoughts about this device and how I think it might make Steve Jobs turn in his grave. Firstly, I want to start with saying that I'm a big fan of Apple and very much locked into their walled garden with an iPhone 11 Pro Max as my daily driver, a MacBook Pro which I use to edit this video, an iPad mini, an Apple Watch and an Apple TV 4. I've been a fan of Apple since a friend introduced me to the click-wheel iPod in 2004, and I've been primarily using an iPhone since iPhone 4. With that said, I'm not a full-blown Apple fanboy and I do have my quarrels with the company, even though I do own some Apple stock and keep buying their devices. I've been annoyed with Apple since the launch of the iPhone 6 back in 2015. I could not believe Apple, who in the past had put so much weight and effort into design, and was a market leader and inspiration for the whole industry when it came to hardware design, that they would release a device with a protruding camera. Unbelievable! I could not fathom why the Apple would make such a horrible design choice, and ever since I've been waiting for them to rectify this grave transgression, and every year they keep disappointing me. Because for me it's obvious, and it has been obvious for so long, that Apple could choose to make the device just 1 mm thicker, 0.04 inches, and use that extra space for a bigger battery, and kill two birds with one stone. Because let's be honest, until iPhone 11 came out, Apple sucked at battery life. Between my iPhone 4 and iPhone 10, I was almost never reaching afternoon without the need to refill the juice. And how did Apple increase battery life with the iPhone 11? Increased thickness, of course. iPhone 11 reaching the all-high thickness of any iPhone ever with a whopping 8.3 millimeters. Compare that to the 7.3 of the new iPhone SE. There's a whole millimeter of difference there between the devices, and since the camera bump is protruding exactly 1 millimeter, why not increase the whole thickness of the device, get rid of the disgusting wart of a camera bump, increase battery life, and have the new cheap device also be visually attractive without a case? How come no one is talking about this? The protruding camera is not just abhorrent visually, but also physically not practical. Even if you don't find the wart as visually disgusting as I do, Apple in essence forces you to hide any remaining attraction of the device behind a case. And if you don't, you're left with a wobbling non-symmetric mess which just begs to be wobbled or flattened by a case. With all that said, the reason I think Steve Jobs would be turning in his grave if he saw this so-called new device, it's not because of the aforementioned wart. It's actually because of an even greater transgression that Apple has committed and has been committing since the launch of the iPhone 7. You see, before the iPhone 7, Apple had established a tradition of introducing a new design every 2 years. This kept us consumers interested and keen on upgrading, even if the hardware upgrade wasn't that significant. All that changed with the iPhone 7, and Apple committed what was previously a typical Samsung move and released the device virtually exactly the same as the iPhone 6 and the 6S. Albeit with a few new colors, but really the exact same design hardware-wise. This was another transgression I simply could not believe. Apple, already then being one of the world's biggest companies, could certainly afford launching a new design. The laziness and the playing it safe was not something I expected from Apple, and I could not forgive them for this crime. Imagine my reaction the year after when Apple released the iPhone 8. My anger and frustration was not really decreasing, although the new design in the iPhone 10 release at the same time did give me some comfort. We are now 3.5 years after my initial iPhone 7 shock, and a whole 5.5 years after Apple's initial release of the iPhone 6 design, And Apple has the audacity of releasing a device with virtually exactly the same design and calling it new. And that's after reusing the iPhone X's design for the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. I don't count adding a camera lens as changing the design. I expect more from Apple, and I think you should too. And of course, I understand the need of keeping costs down, and one way of doing that is to reuse an existing design and streamline the production. But that fact does not give Apple the right to laziness or to stop innovating. If there's one company in the world who can afford to play around a little bit and even to fail, that is Apple. They could have made the screen just a tiny bit bigger, the chin and the forehead smaller, or they could have made the whole device more iPhone 4-like, with a more rectangular design. That would of course have increased cost, but Apple can afford it. They would sell a whole lot of more devices. I mean, just look at Tesla and what they did with the Cybertruck. Even though my initial reaction was to hate it, just as many others were, I anyhow applauded Tesla for the guts they showed by daring to do something new. The truth is, though, that if Apple would have done so, the device would probably have been too attractive, and they would risk cannibalizing iPhone 11 sales. So that risk, in addition to laziness and inertia, made Apple reuse an almost 6-year-old design, and that certainly makes Steve Jobs turn in his grave. I felt obligated to make this video and voice this criticism because I didn't see anyone else do it, at least not as strongly as I wish they would have. But with that said, I do agree with the deserved praise that the device has received. I am able to criticize Apple's laziness when it comes to the design, whilst at the same time acknowledging that they have released a device with a flagship processor, a great camera, software updates for years to come, and all that at a price that is actually affordable. That is unheard of, and Apple does deserve praise for it. My point is that while praising Apple for what they deserve praise for, you should not forget to criticize them for things that they deserve criticism for. And for you who might say that they wouldn't have been able to release this device for this price if they had changed the design, I've already addressed that with saying that yes, they would have. Apple can afford to take that hit. And actually there's other ways to cut costs. I would have actually preferred a device with an older, let's say iPhone X processor with a new design, better battery and a non-protruding camera than this old design with a new processor. Maybe that's just me, but I don't think so. I think others might agree. So, do you agree with my critique here, or do you find me spoiled and unnecessarily harsh? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you liked this video. Share it with someone you dislike if you didn't. That was it for this video. Stay home, keep safe, stay healthy. Peace.